just like what we saw in Santa Monica last night. Let's pull up that video. I was out there covering this. I live in Santa Monica. It was one of the worst things I've ever seen. Total chaos. Looters had free reign, essentially, for an hour or two. Police were just completely outmanned. They couldn't be everywhere at once. They hit 3rd Street Promenade, an extremely wealthy area, part of town, extremely popular with tourists. That's where everybody shops, a lot of brand name stores there, and hundreds of looters just had a free-for-all there. They just ransacked a bunch of the stores there. They set a couple stores on fire. I walked through there this morning, and it was just an absolute disaster zone. It almost looked like another country. It was extremely disappointing to see, and the Santa Monica police chief is taking a lot of heat because of it now. There's a recall petition out for her. And back out here live here in L.A. as we head into sunset. All these protests that we've had, for the most part, have been peaceful so far, but what we've seen happen is once the sun starts to go down, they quickly become violent, they quickly become agitated, and the looting begins. We're hoping that doesn't happen here, but about 20 minutes north of where I'm standing right now in Van Nuys, the looting has already started. Tucker?
Bill, you've been in the middle of it. Thank you so much for that. Well, as we told you, the president spoke live from the Rose Garden just over an hour ago, and he vowed to deploy federal forces to end rioting that is destroying cities across the country. One of those cities is the city in which the president spoke, Washington, D.C., and just outside the White House, police are readying for what could be another night of destruction. Fox's Kevin Corke is there. He joins us now. Hey, Kevin.
Evening, Tucker. Obviously a very different scene than we saw last night. We are here at the intersection of 16th and I, and if you know the city, that's just a block away from Lafayette Park. And while things are very calm here, as you see, we are surrounded by law enforcement all over. In fact, there are several vans here to collect those who are out after curfew, so that could certainly be happening here in the next few moments. We've actually seen a couple people already arrested. Compare that to what we saw earlier today here at Lafayette Park. It was really quite the scene. We saw a huge rush of people coming at us. Of course, we were set up just outside of St. John's Church because we wanted to get all the pictures and the sound and to see how the park might be different than last night. I mean, last night was really quite something. Of course, we saw all the number of fires, including the one in the basement of the parish office over at St. John's. Today, a very different scene. For a while, you saw the wild movement of the crowd. They were actually ushered in a direction by law enforcement and then cordoned off eventually right here on 16th. But again, very different from last night. We're hopeful that things remain calm. If I were to compare, I'd say there's no comparison. Right now, a very different scene here in Washington. Tucker?
Kevin Corke. Thanks so much, Kevin. Amazing reporting the last couple of days. I appreciate it.
Thank you, my friend.
Well, in a moment like this, as we said a minute ago, what you want more than anything is clarity. It's hard to know what this means when it's right in your face and happening before you. And in moments like this, the first person we turn to is Victor Davis Hanson. He's a senior fellow at the Hoover Institution, one of the clearest thinkers we know, and he joins us tonight. Professor, thanks so much for coming on. What do you make of this?
Thank you, Tucker. Well, I think we're waiting for one brave person to step forward and say no more. I've seen a lot of riots and demonstrations, arson, looting in my lifetime. They've been more violent, they've been more deadly, but I've never seen any where the authorities themselves tried to contextualize the violence, apologize, even approve of it. We've seen that. And this country was united in their anguish and anger at that policeman. And there was a liberal mayor and a liberal governor and a liberal police chief, and the wheels of justice were turning fast. So there was no reason for these protests to get out of hand. And they did. And partly it was because they could, because the demonstrators very quickly saw that people would apologize or appease them, and they took advantage of it. People who are poor and in need do not steal Nike shoes, and they don't go into Louis Vuitton stores to steal $5,000 bags. And people who are real revolutionary, Antifa, don't worry about an indictment on their record that will hurt their corporate profile. And that's what we're dealing with. And so why did this happen? You can make the argument, well, maybe the media went full Baghdad Bob style, where flames were in the background while they assured us the demonstrations were peaceful, or they had to sidestep looters as they assured us that nobody was breaking the law. That might be a reason. It's 2020 is an election year. I think a lot of the left thought that where Robert Mueller, impeachment, COVID, and the lockdown failed, maybe this disaster would succeed in finally getting rid of Donald Trump. Joe Biden was mired in racial politics before this happened. I think he thought he could leverage, and the left could, the African-American vote in certain ways that they found useful. But whatever it was, Tucker, it's deleterious because when you sum it all up, what are we left with? We're left with the idea of chaos is going to hurt the president. I think this independent swing voter is going to say, all I'm looking for is somebody to stop it. If that's Donald Trump, I may not like his tweets, but he's the only thing between me and Santa Monica. And I don't think the left gets that. I think this whole urban paradigm that we're going to cram a bunch of people and we're going to call it sophisticated and globalized coastal corridors and the winners and the elite. We found out that it wasn't a good paradigm, mass transit, et cetera, during the COVID crisis and the lockdown. And now we know that these blue state mayors either can't or won't keep you either healthy and they can't keep you safe. And the idea that they're going to beg for more money when this is over and the rest of America is going to say, good job, here's some more trillion, is absolutely crazy. And finally, Tucker, there's China. We're in an existential war with China, and they've changed their tune lately watching this. It's no longer, well, maybe we were wrong, let's work together. It's, what the hell are you going to do about it? So what? So what if we call the virus? We're moving on Hong Kong. We're fighting with India. We're going to move on Taiwan. And what are you doing? You're identifying by your tribal affinity. So really in America, you've got one choice. You either say I'm a human and I identify as American and race and gender are unimportant, or I'm a tribalist and my superficial appearance is my primary loyalty. And that's what this is about. And people are going to have to choose what kind of country or what kind of country they won't have.
I think we should demand that people reject tribalism because we know where it leads. We've been watching video of it. That's totally unacceptable, and we should call it out wherever we see it and not play along. Big corporations abet this constantly. They abet it. And the rest of us should say, no, you're not going to divide us. This is not a cockfight. It's a country. Professor, thank you so much.
Absolutely.